The 14-year-old boy charged in the killing of a Toronto senior in a busy plaza made his first court appearance today. The victim, a 71-year-old North York woman, killed while putting groceries in her car last week.
Well, the city of Toronto provides an explanation on its slow progress after ancient human remains were discovered by construction crews on an Indigenous burial site last year. Now, with the help of First Nations groups, investigators are working to bring the case to a close. We're going to tell you more.
And the Red Hot Jays could set a franchise record for longest home-winning streak in team history tonight when they take on the Yankees. We've got a preview.
This is Live at 5. Good evening. I'm Bakari Savage.
And I'm Lena Latafat. Thanks so much for joining us and welcome to Live at 5. We have more tonight on that random, unprovoked attack which left a 71-year-old woman dead. The senior stabbed to death outside a grocery store in North York last week.
The 14-year-old boy charged with second-degree murder made his court appearance today for the latest developments in this disturbing case. Let's go live to CP24's Andrew Brennan. Andrew.
Good afternoon to you both. And yes, the 14-year-old young accused, now accused of second-degree murder, making his way via video appearance into court, wearing an orange jumpsuit today. Not much happening. A lot of things moved over. The question will become, is there going a special bail hearing does need to take place and when that could be. But as you mentioned off the top of the show, Lena and Bakari, this is a case that is quite disturbing and has captured the attention of many around the city. A woman just getting out of the car, going to get groceries, according to police, 9:30 a.m. last Thursday, and then losing her life. And still unclear as to why. Now, that may not make much of a difference ultimately to the family that she's left behind, but there are some questions that we'll have to find a way to get answers to over the coming days, really weeks and months from now, as to the potential ramifications this case could have. I do want to bring in, we had Selwyn Peters, one of many attorneys that's been following this case closely. He does say that when you're dealing, one, with the Youth Criminal Justice Act, even though this case had an accused or a young person named and had their face displayed publicly by police before their arrest, now they are in front of the court. They are not going to be named. There's so many pieces of this that have extra considerations because this is a young alleged offender. Here's more from Peters.
It looks at social context. For example, this young man is a black kid. It could be, it will look at whether he grew up with his parents, whether he was the victim of abuse, whether he was a victim of personal and systemic racism, whether he was a product of the social or the child welfare system. There are tons of situations that affect young people that bring them to the stage where they're at.
All the same, there's a family that's mourning the loss of this person, 71-year-old Shanaz Pastanji, losing her life last week. And now this case, again, beginning its way through the court system with this young accused facing one count of second-degree murder. Lena, Bakari, we know we'll be following this case for quite a while to come. But as you mentioned off the top, a disturbing case that's captured the attention indeed.
All right, Andrew Brennan reporting live tonight. Andrew, thanks so much. A Montreal man has been charged with murder in the death of his daughter in New York.
45-year-old Luciano Fratelin was escorted to a police cruiser this morning. This is footage right here. This is shortly after it was announced that he was charged with second-degree murder. So he was taken into custody after police said that he fabricated a story about his 9-year-old daughter, Melina, being abducted near the New York-Vermont border on Saturday. So police say that Melina's body was recovered yesterday from a pond northeast of where she was reported abducted.
At about 5:30 p.m. on July 20th, Melina is observed with her father on video surveillance in Saratoga Springs, New York. At about 6:30 p.m., she spoke to her mother on the phone and told her she and her father were en route back to Canada. The child appeared to be in good health and did not indicate she was under any duress. The investigation has determined sometime after Melina's phone call with her mother and before Monsieur Fratellin's 911 call, he allegedly murdered Melina and left her body in a remote area where she was later discovered by law enforcement.
Fratolin is in police custody in North York. He's also charged with concealing a body, and there is no word yet on a possible motive.
Well, OPP are trying to identify two suspects. This is after a rock was thrown from an overpass onto a vehicle on the 401 NHX.
Yeah, here's where this happened around 11:30 yesterday morning at the Harwood Avenue overpass. OPP say a rock struck an eastbound vehicle, damaging its windshield. No injuries were reported. The suspects are described as white males. One had long curly red hair wearing a red shirt, and the other was wearing a gray shirt.
It is quite concerning when you start seeing all these rock incidents happen, right? We had that big investigation in Aurora a couple months ago. Last couple of weeks, we've been seeing Niagara, St. Catharines area be hit with these rock throwing incidents. It's very concerning. It's very dangerous to the motorists on the road when they're driving along. They're not expecting rocks to hit their vehicle. They're paying attention to the roadway. They're not looking above. They can't see the rocks coming if they're big or large. All they know is when they're driving, they can just see, or feel the impact of that rock hitting the car. But it is quite concerning and it needs to stop.
And anybody with dash camera footage of the area around 11:30 a.m. Sunday is asked to contact Whitby OPP.
An update today from the city on the investigation into ancient human remains which were found during a construction project on Withrow Avenue last year.
Yeah, the remains discovered on a historic Indigenous burial site. For all the details, let's bring in CP24's Lindsay Biscaya at City Hall. And the city talked about why this is taking so long, Lindsay.
Yes, and interestingly enough, Lena and Bakari, this update from the city comes just days after the Haudenosaunee Territory released a statement saying that they do not agree with this investigation. They have a number of claims that they would like to be answered and a number of requests they would like the city to fulfill because they do not agree with this. They have not given their consent to this investigation. So we'll back up a little bit. These remains found last January in the area of Withrow Avenue when some pipes were being replaced in that area. And when human remains are found outside of a registered cemetery, a provincial order is given to conduct a thorough burial site investigation. So the city is now doing that. Out of respect, it says, it invited 11 First Nations to participate in this burial site investigation. 10 so far have raised no concerns. 6 are actively involved in the investigation. And of those 6, that includes the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation. The chief was actually here at City Hall today, and she said MCFN is the sole treaty holder of this territory, and they should be the only point of contact in this investigation. She says HDI, which is the Haudenosaunee Development Institute, has no rights here, basically saying that she doesn't agree with the Haudenosaunee Territory press release that came out last week. She says she wants this to get moving. She wants answers because, of course, this is an incredibly sensitive investigation, and the Mississauga of Credit First Nation says it wants to know more about these human remains and who was here. Here's more from the chief today when she spoke to reporters and gave a presentation at City Hall.
We know where our lands are. We're all standing on them right now. We know that what our rights are. We know we have never surrendered our rights within our treaty lands. And we know those rights are as vital and important today as they were when our treaties were signed centuries ago. And more than anything, we know what our obligations are. We are stewards of these lands, stewards of these waters, and guardians of the legacy of our ancestors.
Now, the Haudenosaunee Development Institute is demanding a number of requests, as I mentioned, including the return of its ancestors' remains. The city has said it is unable to meet those demands and has notified HDI of that. And so it sounds as though the city is going to continue with this investigation. We heard from some of the members of the investigation today, including Lisa Merritt, who is part of ASI, so part of the dig that will be happening here and looking into the discovery of these remains. She spoke a little bit more about the next steps in this investigation.
I can say that too, it's very preliminary. We don't know how many people, how many individuals are down there. And I think the next steps are going to be dictated based on that, based on what we find. We haven't had a chance to open up the feature yet. So once we do that, in discussions with the Registrar of Burials and the First Nations, there'll be a decision about whether these remains are moved or whether they potentially stay in place and are honored there in place, which is a possibility.
So Lisa Merritt, I should have mentioned also, is a practicing archaeologist, and she was talking a little bit more about what we know so far. Obviously, as you heard from her, there's a lot we don't know in terms of the human remains that were found around Withrow Avenue, Lena and Bakari, but she also mentioned what they do know is about 600 generations of Indigenous peoples were on that area of land. So that shows you just how far that goes back. And there's so many other answers here that we don't have yet. But meanwhile, as I mentioned, it sounds as though that investigation is going to continue. All the on-site part of that investigation hasn't commenced yet. And we were trying to get clarification today from the city in terms of people who live in that area or maybe who have properties, whether what they should know, whether those properties will be disrupted in the investigation. And we didn't get a clear answer on that. Back to you.
Okay, live from City Hall, CP24's Lindsay Biscaya. Lindsay, thank you. It's now 5:11. Let's get a check on the evening commute with CP24's traffic specialist, Adjoa Ntiyabois.
Well, good afternoon, Lena Bakar. We have some big problems that are taking place on TTC Line 1 right in the heart of rush hour. We have a power out situation happening on TTC Line 1, and as a result, there is no service between Eglinton and Bloor-Yonge. Shuttle buses are on the way to get passengers through, but again, big headaches for commuters that are just trying to make their way home. Going to show you my cameras now. We had some problems that were happening that did come and go. So eastbound on the 401, just past the 427, the center lane blocked. It was following a collision. The problem there did clear. The delays, though, do continue. You can see that last blocker crew just leaving the scene. Then further east on the 401 through Avenue Road, just on the approach in the collectors, it is the center lane that was blocked at the collision. It looks like my camera froze, so I can't show you that problem. I can show you problems that are off to the side, though. This is the DVP northbound, just as you make around the approach to Bayview Bloor. Stalled vehicle now off to the side. It was blocking the right lane. At least it cleared. And if you're traveling towards the Gardner, trying to get out of the downtown core, keep your shades handy and your patience with you. It is a slow go exiting the downtown core, starting from Jarvis in sections out to past Park Lawn through that construction zone. I'll send it back to you both.
All right, Adjoa, thanks so much for this. It's now 5:12, 23 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
Well, a three-day meeting of the country's premiers got underway today. First item on the agenda, discussions with the Indigenous groups as we tackle Donald Trump's trade war.
Welcome back. A three-day meeting of the country's premiers is underway in Huntsville this week, with the economy topping the agenda.
The main focus is going to be how they should respond to the tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. Well, today, premiers met with Indigenous leaders who are concerned about contentious new federal and provincial laws meant to fast-track major infrastructure projects as a way to stimulate the economy.
They can't do something if they don't want to do it, but there's enough people out there, enough First Nations communities that are saying, let's go. But what I heard, let's move quick. And I agree with them. We sit around and we can chat, we'll be sitting there chatting for another 2 years. They don't want that. They want to move. They want to target one specific project within their community, and they want to move on it. They want to be partners with us.
First Nations have enlisted more than any other group of people in this country to protect this country so that all of us can live a free and good life. And again, we stand up again against these illegal tariffs that are pushed upon this country by by President Trump. And we stand with the premiers of this country in trying to find that path forward, as well as with the federal government to try and find the best path forward. But they have to make sure, though, that there's space for First Nations people at these tables. We cannot be left, as an afterthought anymore.
And when it comes to trade and tariffs, CTV's political commentator Scott Reed says he'll be watching to see how aligned leaders are coming out of these talks.
Well, I don't know how much will be accomplished in terms of concrete deliverables coming out of it, but I think it's a really consequential meeting. And, it's very unusual, just as an example, for the Prime Minister to invite himself to the Council of Federation, which is what all the premiers coming together. Usually that's the last place the Prime Minister wants to be, because typically those meetings are a gripe session about the federal government, and it ends with a long communique demanding money in one sort or another from the federal government. Yet the Prime Minister wants to be there. Why? Donald Trump, trade, tariffs, and that looming August 1st deadline. So I do think it's going to be an important meeting, because we're going to be talking about how do we try to secure some kind of deal by August 1st with the Americans, and just as much we'll be talking about how do we manage a world in which we don't get a deal.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is set to join the meetings tomorrow. This is where he's going to hear feedback ahead of his critical trade talks with the U.S.
And officials with the Canadian Medical Association say they're also in Huntsville this week to remind premiers about the important role healthcare can play in nation building.
Yeah, the CMA says that the healthcare sector employs about 3 million Canadians and contributes more than $200 billion a year to Canada's GDP. But it says that the health system also spends billions importing technology, pharmaceuticals, medical equipment, and other items from outside Canada. Now, the CMA says that we can build a more resilient economy by supporting Canadian expertise and innovation.
And Carney held talks in Ottawa today with a visiting group of U.S. senators. This is the deadline to reach a new trade deal with Washington fast approaches.
Well, the bipartisan delegation, it was made up of 3 Democrats and 1 Republican. They say that they were looking to reaffirm the importance of ties between America and Canada. Their meeting with Carney comes as he tries to secure an economic agreement with the Trump administration ahead of August 1st. That's when a 35% tariff on Canadian goods, that's set to be imposed.
We're talking about tariffs. Tariffs or taxes. In our country, the biggest issue is cost. People are concerned about the price of goods and services, and we know that that's a big issue in Canada. We've got a big date coming up, August 1st, and we made it clear that on a bipartisan basis, we want to work with all sides, the executive branch in both countries, to get some stability back in the economy in the United States and in Canada.
This visit is as much of an effort to ensure that there is a recognition that this trust, this relationship that we have had between our 2 countries is solid, despite the complicated world that we're navigating right now when it comes to tariffs and trade issues.
CTV News U.S. political analyst Eric Ham says Carney's meeting with the senators likely won't have an impact on the trade talks with the White House.
While they are certainly going to prioritize the relationship specifically between the nation and their respective states, and we know Canada is a leading trade partner for a majority of American states right now, in these negotiations and discussions, it's all about what Donald Trump says and what he thinks is important. And we know Donald Trump can pull the rug from under these negotiations at any moment, at any time.
Yeah, Carney has said that even if Canada reaches a new trade deal with the U.S., it's still likely to include some tariffs.
All right, it is 5:20 now, 23 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
And coming up, Canada's first national urban park. It's celebrating a milestone today. Canada's first national urban park. It's celebrating a milestone today.
Yeah, Rouge National Urban Park turning 10. The park that spans over 79 square kilometers in the eastern GTA is one of the largest urban parks in North America. Since 2015, more than 300,000 native trees, perennials, shrubs, and aquatic plants have been planted throughout that park. It is home to over 2,000 species of plants and animals.
This is a very important day. It really is a culmination of decades of work. And look, I'm fortunate because I was elected in 2015 and the first act came into place at that time. The park was started off around the summer. We were elected in October. We expanded the park to 79.1 square kilometers.
Okay, so a really important note, admission to Rouge National Park and other national parks in Canada, free until September 2nd, free.
Yeah, all about promoting our own economy and our own tourism. 524, 23 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
Coming up, the Jays could set a team record tonight when they take on the Yankees at home. We're going to check in with Melissa Duggan. She's at Rogers Center. That's next.
Welcome back. Well, the Jays could set a franchise record for longest home winning streak in team history tonight when they take on the Yankees.
Okay, let's go live to CP24. It's Melissa Duggan. Melissa, you're talking to fans. We had to ask you about the excitement. Can you feel it? Can you make us feel it here in the studio?
They are pumped. I sure will try. Jays fans pretty excited about tonight. They're already in there right now. We just saw these big crowds get in there, and they're there early, of course. First pitch not till 7:07, but they want to be there for the full experience because these Blue Jays are red hot. What a weekend we just wrapped up, sweeping those Giants after the All-Star break, and now we're looking to do the same thing with the Yankees. You'll remember earlier this month, the Jays swept the Yankees here at home in a 4-game series, and that really got that momentum going, putting those Jays to the top of the AL East. Right now, the Jays leading the Yankees by 3 games. So are we going to see that grow, that gap? That's what fans are hoping. Here's what they're telling me.
I'm looking for big expectations tonight. I hope they win, because I don't like the Yankees.
Oh, it's awesome this year to watch it. I mean, back from 9th free, and now the boys get to actually kind of watch how good they're doing this year. Everybody's excited. It's been awesome.
I think we have a chance to win the World Series this year. Yeah. What a turnaround the last few weeks, eh? Yeah. No, looking forward to them going all the way.
Jeff Hoffman, he's got people coming out early to the game today. That's because it is his bobblehead game as well. So 15,000 of those puppies being handed out to lucky fans tonight. We were also talking to TSN's Matt Koss just about this team, the players that are standing out. And really, top to bottom, we're seeing action across the board. Have a listen.
Well, what's remarkable is at the beginning of the year, no one expected the Blue Jays to be this good. They were projected to be last in the American League East because they were last in the American League last season, in the AL East last season. Now, as we speak, as you and I are talking right now, they have a better winning percentage than the Dodgers. It is crazy times. And if the Blue Jays win tonight against the Yankees, they set an all-time mark for consecutive home wins. They've won 10 in a row after that sweep of the Giants. These are crazy, interesting, and fun days with the baseball team.
Yeah, so we're looking at setting a new franchise record tonight. If the Jays do walk away with a W, that would be their 11th consecutive win at home, which would be a new record for this team. And I already checked about those ticket prices just a second ago, Lena and Bakari. The cheapest ticket I'm seeing on StubHub right now, $148, and that's for the 500 level. Back to you.
Okay, so that's the cheapest. Melissa Duggan reporting live from outside Rogers Center, hanging out with all the fans. They're so excited tonight. Melissa, thanks so much. It's 5:30, 23 degrees. This is Live at 5.
A 14-year-old boy charged with second-degree murder in the fatal stabbing of a 71-year-old woman in North York made his first court appearance today. More on this next. The 14-year-old boy charged in the killing of a Toronto senior in a busy plaza made his first court appearance today. The victim, a 71-year-old North York woman who was killed while putting groceries in her car last week.
The city of Toronto provides an explanation on its slow progress after ancient human remains were discovered by construction crews on an Indigenous burial site last year. Now, with the help of some First Nations groups, investigators are hoping to bring this case to a close. We'll tell you more.
And the Red Hot Jays could set a franchise record for longest home winning streak in team history tonight. That's when they take on the Yankees. We've got a preview.
You're watching Live at 5. Good evening, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Lena Latafat.
I'm Bakari Savage. We have more tonight on that random, unprovoked attack. This left a 71-year-old woman dead.
Yeah, the senior stabbed to death outside a grocery store in North York last week, and the 14-year-old boy charged with second-degree murder made his first court appearance today. For the latest developments in this disturbing case, we turn to CP24's Andrew Brennan. Andrew.
Lena, Bakari, disturbing is one way that this has been described since we heard about this case during broad daylight, having someone, according to police, going to get their groceries, being stabbed in a parking lot, and ultimately losing their life. This barely, not even a week ago, an assailant on the run for several days. Police questioning people with regards to a 14-year-old who they publicly named and addressed with special consideration and dispensation, I should add. But we do have images from the day of and how much it shocked people as they were going again to get groceries on Thursday. We now have just going through the basics of the court proceedings to give people a sense. This could take a very long time. This is a preliminary appearance that was done by a video call today. The young accused, now no longer under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, as he's before the court, can be named or identified in any way, even incidentally. Now, as these proceedings move on, the question is going to be coming as to what the Crown's arguments will be, what the defense will be providing as ultimately their defense as this goes through court. We spoke with Selwyn Peters, an attorney, earlier on today, and he says there's a lot of special considerations under the Youth Criminal Justice Act that make for some interesting legal inside baseball, as it were. There's things to consider that we may not be thinking of right now. Take a listen.
Whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're South Asian or Chinese, we all live in one community. And you can see crime is not contained to one area. It can happen anywhere, and random people can be affected as well. So, we have to make sure that even the children who are falling aside are taken care of so that these unfortunate, tragic moments do not occur.
And on your screen right now is the photo of who was the person lost. She was 71-year-old Shanaz Pastanji. And now police, having found who they believe to be their young person in this case, now everything turns to the Crown and how they will be looking to proceed with this case. A special bail hearing does need to take place, as there's a lot of talk about changing the bail system. Lena Bakari, with violent incidents, usually there's a reverse onus in bail cases, including with young people. Right now, we do know the accused will be going back to court on the 28th. For now, we will send it back to you.
All right, Andrew, thanks so much for this. A Montreal man has been charged with murder in the death of his daughter in New York.
45-year-old Luciano Fratellin escorted to a police cruiser this morning. This is shortly after it was announced that he was charged with second-degree murder. Well, Fratellin was taken into custody after police say that he fabricated a story about his 9-year-old daughter, Melina, being abducted near the New York-Vermont border on Saturday. And police say that Melina's body was recovered yesterday. This is from a pond northeast of where she was reported abducted.
The suspect's initial account is that he had pulled over in the area of exit 22 in Lake George, pulled over into a parking lot to urinate. His initial report is he steps away to a wooded area, returns to the vehicle, and at that point, his child is gone from the vehicle. He reports a suspicious white van fleeing the scene southbound. During a subsequent interview, he then reports 2 unknown males forced her into a white van. That lead was thoroughly investigated and disproven.
Obviously, so much more to learn about what happened here, including the motive. What we do know is that Fratellin is in police custody in New York. He's also charged with concealing a body.
Well, a woman's dead after being hit by a vehicle in Markham.
The collision happened in the Markham Road and Elson Street area. Shortly after 8 o'clock this morning, police say the 56-year-old woman was rushed to hospital but did not survive. The circumstances surrounding the collision remain under investigation, and there's no word yet if charges will be laid.
Well, an update today from the city on the investigation into ancient human remains found during a construction project on Withrow Avenue last year.
Yeah, the remains discovered on a historic Indigenous burial site. For all the details, let's go live to CP24's Lindsay Biscaya at City Hall. Lindsay.
Yeah, so these remains were discovered, Lena Bakari, when the city were replacing some pipes in the area of Withrow Avenue near a public school, but also on what we know is the site of an ancient Indigenous burial ground as well. So when these remains were first discovered, contractors contacted Toronto Police. Toronto Police took control of the site and soil, including soil in a work truck nearby, and they protected it ever since. And the provincial order is that when human remains are found outside of a registered cemetery, a thorough burial site investigation must be conducted. So the city is In the process of doing that, out of respect, they also invited 11 First Nations to participate in that investigation. The city says today in a news conference that 10 have raised no concerns with the city in terms of this investigation. 6 are actively involved in the investigation. That includes Mississauga of the Credit First Nation. And the chief of MCFN was actually there today here at City Hall in Toronto talking about this investigation because there is one First Nation group that is raising some concerns. The Haudenosaunee Development Institute has sent out a media release last week talking about some of the concerns that were raised. But today, the chief of Mississauga of the Credit First Nation was basically saying that Mississauga Credit is the sole treaty holder of this territory, and they should be the only point of contact in this investigation. She was saying once we know whose remains these belong to, then Mississauga of the Credit First Nation can reach out to that First Nations territory and contact them. So we heard more from the chief today in terms of her frustrations that this investigation has been delayed. Here's what she had to say.
You know, it's an unfortunate set of circumstances we're in, but, you know, our nation's committed to, working with the city to bring this to a close. Again, we are the treaty holder. I think that's what should matter here, right? So our nation's very committed to working with our neighbors, working with our partners within our treaty territory to move in a productive way.
So in this release that the Haudenosaunee Territory sent out last week, talking about some of their concerns, they say that they do not agree with this investigation. They say some of the human remains are in a dump truck somewhere and have been for the last year and a half. And the Haudenosaunee Territory does not know where that dump truck is. Now, we asked the city about this today. The city says all of the remains have been accounted for. The Haudenosaunee Territory also says that it wants these remains delivered back to them, but the city says it cannot meet these requests that are in this release. And so it sounds as though the city is going to be going ahead with this investigation nonetheless. Now, we heard from a couple of other members today, including Lisa Merritt. She's a practicing archaeologist and is part of this investigation. She talked about what the next steps are going to be now. Here's more.
It's likely that this burial feature has been impacted by 100 and odd years of development, and it's very rare that we find features like this in the city of Toronto because of the massive amount of disturbance. So it also could be possibly related to a redeposition of these remains from work at the public school across the street, work from the road. We really have no idea. I mean, it could be fairly localized, and I think that's what we're hoping.
So Merritt was also speaking about how much of a privileged site this looks like it was to be a burial site for the First Nations group that was here in the Withrow Avenue area. She says it's a site overlooking the Don River. It's incredibly peaceful. And judging by the evidence that they've found so far, it looks as though there was 600 generations of Indigenous peoples on this land. So that's a long time when you really take that into account, 600 generations of people. Now, this investigation is ongoing, obviously. It does continue. The city confirmed that today, although on-site investigation has not commenced yet, but it sounds as though that will happen soon. Those are some of the next steps, and then the final process will be drafting up a report as well. But today, really, that update was just that there is one First Nations group that has raised some concerns, but the city sounds as though it's going to be going on with this investigation nonetheless. And we have, of course, at CP24, reached out to the Haudenosaunee Territory for comment, an update from them, and at this point we have not heard back. Lena, Bakari.
Okay, this investigation clearly so sensitive in nature. The city's got to make sure that it gets it right. Lindsay, thanks so much. A bridge remains closed following an encampment fire in a ravine near Yonge and St. Clair.
The structural integrity of the St. Clair Avenue Bridge east of Yonge between Avoca Avenue and Inglewood Drive. It's being checked after the fire underneath it last night. So emergency crews, they responded to the fire right around 11:30. There were no injuries.
543, 23 degrees in the city. Let's get a check on that. Drive home with traffic specialist Adjoa Nca.
Yeah, we have problems that are still with us on the westbound 401. They're in the transfers as you make your way through Mavis. Crews on scene of a collision that does have the right lane blocked in the transfer lanes. Now, we had problems. They were happening on the 403. They were on the westbound side just as you made your way on the approach to Dundas. It looks like it was the left lane that was blocked and stalled. The situation did all clear. And outside of camera view, getting word of a collision on the southbound lanes of the 400 up at Highway 9. Reports of a collision blocking the left lane. I'll send it back to you.
All right, thanks, Hatch. It's 5:43, 23 degrees. This is Live at 5.
A three-day meeting of the country's premiers got underway today, and the first item on the agenda was discussions with Indigenous groups as we tackle Donald Trump's trade war. We'll tell you more about what the premier had to say about those talks next.
Well, a three-day meeting of the country's premiers. It's underway in Huntsville with the economy topping the agenda.
Yeah, the main focus will be how the premiers, these provincial leaders, should respond to the tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. Today was all about meeting with Indigenous leaders who are concerned about contentious new federal and provincial laws meant to fast-track major infrastructure projects as a way to stimulate the economy. The premier talked about that today.
That we have 133 First Nations communities, and everyone's a little different, but the ones that want to be progressive, move quick, will move quick. Ones that want a little more consultation, that's fine too. We just want to work together, and everyone's going to prosper.
I think that the views are still very split. As the national chief, as you can imagine, it's tough to say one way or the other. We do have, I'm sure, many different resolutions coming forward, September 3, 4, and 5, when our chiefs gather together. And until that time, I can't comment one way or another, whether we're one way or another, because there's just lots of legal opinions coming up, First Nations talking to their people within their communities, and they should be given that time. And they should have been given that time before the passing of that bill. I absolutely agree with that.
And Prime Minister Mark Carney is set to join the meetings tomorrow. This is where he's going to hear feedback ahead of his critical trade talks with the U.S.
It's now 5:47, 23 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
Coming up, the Jays could set a team record tonight when they take on the Yankees right here at home. We're going to check in with Melissa Duggan at the Ryder Center. That's next. The Jays could set a franchise record for longest home winning streak in team history. That could be tonight. That's when they take on the New York Yankees.
Yeah, let's go live now to CP24's Melissa Duggan. As TSN Radio's Matt Cause said it today, these are crazy times for Jays fans, Melissa. I love when he said that.
It is. And, you really get a sense talking to fans around here right now that this really has the potential to be a special night, to be a special series, and really be a special end to this season. We are coming off that all-star break very strong, sweeping the Giants over the weekend. Now looking to do the same with those Yankees. Of course, we swept the Yankees the last time they were in town. Can they do it again? The last time we played those Yankees here, too, is when we saw that momentum start to build for these Jays, that they are climbing up the AL East. Of course, that's where we are right now, right on top, 3 games ahead of the Yankees. Are we going to see that lead grow over this series? Certainly has the potential for all of that. I was actually talking to some Yankee fans brave enough to stand in line, go to tonight's game, and they're saying, yeah, we feel a little bit nervous about all of this. Not to be surrounded by Jays fans, they say, but just for their team playing these Jays at this moment, they're not liking their odds. We're talking to, as you mentioned, TSN Radio's Matt Cause about this specific team, the players that are really stepping up. Here's what he's telling us.
It's about unexpected production. Addison Barger has had an incredible July, career-high 4 hits on Saturday. Will Wagner coming out of nowhere, having a really good weekend. Ernie Clement as well. Eric Lauer, who pitched a gem on Saturday. So it's a combination of guys that you didn't expect that are kind of playing above themselves. And then you're getting a return to form of a George Springer, who's leading the team in RBI and in home runs. Bo Bichette is healthy. Alejandro Kirk has really stepped up after a disappointing season last year. So it's a bunch of the veterans who are doing better than we expected, especially Springer, and then just unexpected surprises throughout the roster.
So sure, Springer, Kirk might be household names, might be familiar to you right now. But those other names that he mentioned there, expect to hear more of them, more of those names, because we've been seeing from top to bottom the Jays really activating over the last little while. And you never know who is going to come out with that amazing play, which is what makes these Jays so fun to watch right now. Kevin Gausman, he's going to get the start on the mound tonight. That first pitch coming at 7:07. Back to you.
All right, CP24's Melissa Duggan. Thanks a lot. It's 5:53, 23 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Well, he's best known for playing Theodore Huxtable. Coming up, Malcolm Jamal Warner is being remembered after his death at 54.
Malcolm Jamal Warner, who rose to fame as Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show, has died.
Yeah, Warner reportedly drowned while on vacation in Costa Rica with his family. He was a teenager when he was cast as Bill Cosby's only son during the hit sitcom's run from 1984 to 1992, kicking off a career in Hollywood. And for a closer look at the life and legacy of Malcolm Jamal Warner, we're joined live by Stacey Lee Kong, founder of Friday Things. Stacey, thanks so much for joining us. There's a lot of heartbroken The Cosby Show fans walking around today.
Absolutely. And I think not just people who identify necessarily as the fan or a fan of The Cosby Show, but just in general, Malcolm Jamal Warner played this really important role in a lot of people's childhoods. I mean, I'm 40, and so this was like a really iconic role for people around my age and even younger.
Okay, and with that, you know, Malcolm Jamal Warner also talked about the legacy of the show and, you know, balancing that with, you know, everything around Bill Cosby.
Yeah, and I think when we're thinking about his legacy, that sort of comparison is so apt, because even though the legacy of the show became very complicated because of Bill Cosby, you really can't deny how powerful it was to see this model of Black adolescence, Black boyhood, Black masculinity. Malcolm Jamal Warner played this character that was kind and vulnerable and imperfect, and the dyslexia storyline, I think, really resonated with a lot of people. So even if there was this complicated aspect, there was also this really important meaning to this role.
Yeah, and seeing that, I think, in the mainstream was not only a game changer, but also just so necessary for so many people. Can you talk more about Warner's body of work? I mean, he won a Grammy in 2015 for his work as an R&B artist, and then went on to host a podcast as well.
Absolutely. So I think that's also the really cool thing, is that we think of him as this great actor, and he did. He acted in many different roles. This is maybe a deep cut, but if you watch The Magic School Bus, he was the producer. So many generations of people. But he also was a producer of TV shows. He produced Read Between the Lines. He was a director. He directed several episodes of sitcoms, and a musician and a poet. So really stretched his creative abilities in a lot of different ways.
And also, Stacey, as we wrap up in the last 30 seconds, he led a very private, personal life as well.
Mm-hmm. And so we don't actually know the name of his wife. We know that he has a child, but we don't know their name as well. And I think that is a really interesting and perhaps important way of navigating celebrity. This is someone who has been famous since he was a child himself. And so he had a really strong understanding of what he wanted to share with the world and how much of that was through his art versus what he did not want to share with the world.
Okay, Stacey Lee Kong, founder of Friday Things. So good to get you on. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Stacey.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, it's now 5:58, 23 degrees. This is Toronto's Breaking News, CP24.
And thanks so much for watching. CTV News at 6 is coming up next.